Right up front, the writer of Ecclesiastes tells us that there are 4 things he has pursued in life that have turned out to be only a vapor in the wind, fleeting, temporary, and of little to no long-term value. The first of these is wisdom. In chapter 1, verse 16, he says, "I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this is but a striving after wind, for in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow." Wisdom is a good thing. Solomon, the son of David, and the person we most often attribute the book of Ecclesiastes to, was said to be the wisest person to have lived, because God granted him wisdom when he asked for that instead of riches, long life, or victory over his enemies. Both within Scripture and outside of it, the wisdom of Solomon is seen as great, and his pursuit of it is treated as an example of pursuing the good things in life. And yet the teacher tells us that wisdom is vanity, meaningless, or of little value in the grand scheme of existence. How can this be? If Scripture tells us that pursuing wisdom is a good thing, then how can it be that it's not of great value in the grand scheme of things? So here's 3 other things that are said. Chapter 2, verse 1, "I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity." Chapter 2, verse 14 and 15, "The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceived that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this also is vanity." Then in chapter 2, verse 20 and 21, "So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labors under the sun, because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil." All right, so if you're keeping track, you might see these 4 labeled as vanity: wisdom, pleasure, wisdom, and works towards wealth. Hold on, you're saying that's 3 things. You said wisdom twice, and you're right. The word wisdom gets used several times in talking about the things that are vanity, but there's a distinction here. In the first section, the writer is talking about the amassing of understanding. Having wisdom is itself a vanity. Knowledge and knowing and even discernment are only things which will pass away. In fact, Paul tells us as much in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. This is about what we know and our ability to reason well. Being able to reason things out, says the teacher, leads to further vexation or frustration. The second time wisdom is discussed, in chapter 2, the topic is wisdom in practice, living in a way that reflects discernment, knowledge, or insight. It doesn't actually shelter you from the difficulties or frustrations of this world. Maybe it equips you to navigate them, but it doesn't make you impervious to them. And ultimately, both the wise and the fool experience the same fate: death. Wisdom, pleasure, wise living, wealth through work. If we are to take the book of Ecclesiastes as a discussion on the search for meaning, we need to acknowledge that the author tells us these aren't it. Life is about something else. Even if there are places where we find that wisdom, pleasure, wise living, and the fruit of hard work are generally good things, we cannot accept them as the meaning of life. I can see the image of this wise king, the teacher over Israel, the one with wisdom and riches and a well-administrated kingdom, surrounded by everything his heart could want, realizing that none of it has truly fulfilled him. I can hear his thoughts. There must be something more. I love you. And today I pray that we could take a moment to sit in the seat of the author of Ecclesiastes, that we could observe all the wisdom, riches, pleasure, and careful planning we've pursued in life and ask this question: is this what I'm really about? Is there more? And if so, what? As we dig deeper into the book of Ecclesiastes, I think we will find some very serious answers and some serious challenges to the worldly way of thinking about the meaning of life.